Okay, moving on to our next topic. It's called TV Programming Remote Control, or MTV. I'll read from this so you get the idea. Is television controlling us? Is it making us dumber, smarter? Are our information sources filtering our opinions, or are we filtering the sources? Is TV even relevant now that we have the internet? Would we fear terrorist attacks so much without 24? Is it all in our head? And if so, who put it there and why? Obviously, we can't answer all those questions. I read something very recently in the past couple of days that sort of informs this question. We've heard in the news that our doctors have informed us that aspirin decreases the risk of heart attack with a great deal of evidence to back it up. The only problem is that aspirin doesn't seem to have the same effect on people in England. A 6-year study of 5,139 British doctors revealed no evidence that aspirin reduces the risk of heart attack. Is there a flaw in some of these research, or is it possible that some kind of massive placebo effect is taking place? So in other words, that really becomes the question, what is influencing what? How much is it controlling us? How much are we controlling it? Ultimately, is it reflecting our values? Wide open question.
First thing is that nowadays, although it's not quite 24/7, it's more like 26, there's a lot of TV time to fill, and there's not enough news to fill it. So all kinds of things that would never have been considered news 50 years ago are now news. And it can be this doctor saying that this study has shown this. This other doctor then comes up and said, well, no, this study shows this other thing. My observation is that there's so much time to fill that anybody that does not physically repulse a TV programming executive can get on the air and say any stupid thing he wants to if he's got some kind of a degree to back it up. And the way I always looked at information I got from television for my whole life is now just intensified. If I hear something on TV, I immediately disbelieve it. And if it's important to me, I go to better sources. Not the internet, which is even worse than TV in this respect, but to college professors, to people I know in the education system, or my doctor or someone, to see if that person has an opinion. TV has become far vaster a wasteland than anyone ever expected in the 50s. And
you went from 3 channels to 5 channels. That was on for pretty much, when was the last time you really turned on a television and saw the American flag waving and then static? It just doesn't happen anymore.
And the test pattern with the Indian head, I haven't seen it here.
It just goes, and you have 500 channels, and you got to fill it.
Yeah, but let's not forget it. We keep coming here just in the same way that we were talking about newspapers were going to go away with the coming of the internet and online newspapers. And we keep forgetting that television does and continues to offer a very passive medium. And for the most part, and maybe it's just our generation, we like to be pacified. So even though we can get on the internet and get more and better information and more interactive and more accurate, there's nothing for me that feels as good as kicking back in a lazy boy with a football game or whatever the movie is and not having to be involved. And what happened to interactive movies, right? That was a big deal. You could choose the end. You could figure out where the characters are going to go. It bombed. People wanted quality. They wanted things to go where a good writer or where a story was going to go. So I'm not necessarily convinced that television is going the way of the supposed newspaper, which didn't necessarily go away.
I think television is really about being entertained for the least amount of work possible.
Ah,
you don't have to read, you don't have to think, you don't have to press a button, you can just sit.
How awfully American.
How awfully American.
I think a lot of us really like that. It's a nice thing to, like you said, go home and turn off your brain and detach from everything. As you pointed out, there is a huge increase in terrible programming, but along with that, there's also an increase in really good programming. You can get stations from across the globe that you could never see before. You can get all kinds of news content from around the world. You can get reality shows which aren't necessarily terrific, but it's a real glimpse into, the way people live other places. You can see documentaries, you can see indie films. There's a wealth of material there if you want to sit back and be passively entertained.
And if you're willing to pay for it, the great old market capitalist system, you can actually get some really good shows because you're paying for it. Dexter, Soprano, 6 Feet Under, any number. Yes, Soundman Tim.
I just wanted to say, my parents watch nothing but crime shows. They think that their place they live, which is the safest place in the world, the Plant City in Maryland, they think that they are going to be mugged if they walk on the bike paths. I have a friend who was talking about terrorists the other day and what they would do if they were chasing a terrorist, based entirely on their viewing of 24, evidently. And so I'm just noticing that people have these weird perceptions of reality based on what they've seen on TV. They're actually taking this stuff as if it was the truth.
But people have always had this strange perception of reality. You had Christians roll into the Middle East during the Crusades in armor, and the Muslims were like, cool, and then they come out in their, nice flowing robes and their nice leather, and they beat the living crap out of them until the Christians out, because they had their perception of reality that they heard from their pulpits, and they had from their things, and they went through. This is a human nature. If you don't need television for that, it's just people have their own solid beliefs, they go with it, and then they usually get clobbered by reality. Like if a person actually followed a real terrorist and tried to do 24 stuff, I would actually like to see that as a reality TV show, just because it would be really funny. And
one episode long.
That would be great. Marlene.
Growing up, I was a product of the TV. My mother used it as my pacifier, as my babysitter when she needed to deal with other things, or my brother or whatever, plopped me in front of a TV set and said, "Here, watch TV." So I've been watching TV since I was a little kid. Now, I'm not one of those people who thinks that everything on TV is crap. I happen to think there's several TV shows that are actually quite good out there. But one of my favorite stations, or one of my favorite types of programming, and God knows why, is home improvement TV. And I don't even have a house. I don't know why that particular thing interests me, but I can sit there on my computer and listen to it. I don't even have to watch it, but listen to it while I'm on my computer and be perfectly happy. And I don't care what else is on if my favorite show on that station or other stations like that are on.
Well, this is telling, by the way, and here I'll be there in a second. This is telling was that I didn't like the content in the shows that my kids were watching, so we got rid of cable. We just, went to the local stations. And what we did with them, as compensation was we got Netflix with the streaming video so that they can watch, and we would have better control over what they watched. Interestingly enough, what they ended up doing was watching TV shows on Netflix on the computer. So two things we learned. One, TV still is very appealing, even to kids, because I have twin 9-year-old boys and a 12-year-old girl. It's still very appealing. They just sit back passively and laugh at stupid sitcoms. Two, it could be that they are viewing the computer as a medium by which to watch TV just more rapidly and with more choices. Hair.
So, I got a lot of my learning from television, and I did rather good with it. I seem to have a memory that's real good, so I'm lucky that way. But even back then, when we didn't have the cable, you could learn a lot from television. It wasn't until I turned 50 that I was diagnosed as being autistic.
Right.
But
I think the difference is you can learn a lot from TV as opposed to learn how from the internet. If you want to learn how to play a chord structure, learn how to build something specific, you can go to the internet and in 5 easy steps with a video and with whatever you can see it, and so you'll learn how patiently and take your time. I'll learn about, I didn't know I could do that with a house when I own my nice house, that I'll be able to strip that out and put this in, and that's a cheap solution. So maybe there's a sort of that macro versus that micro view. It's giving us the same thing, but it's giving it to us in different pieces. Yes, Arlen?
Well, they're also crossing lines now, because right now you can watch a TV show and then in 20 minutes or so it'll be on their website. So you can watch it online as well, or a week from then or whatever. So if you miss something, you don't have a DVR, no problem. Just turn your computer on, go to their website, and you can watch it online.
So I think what Kirsten was saying and what we're saying, and then we're going to have closing comments on this topic, is that it's there for a passive enjoyment. It continues to be there for passive enjoyment. It's the way we manipulate it and get to it is starting to change now that technology is advancing. Closing comments.
Can I just say really quickly that the magic is that it assuages loneliness for a lot of people.
Right.
People who don't have access to the real world because they're ill or something else is going on. It's their family, it's their friendship, it's their education. And I don't think you can replace that if you don't have the connection with people.